Alan, we are recording, man. You've made it. You're here. It's the 7th day of the Feast of Sukkot, and we finally get this backyard chat we've been talking about having.
On a nice day, even.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. This is Peter Michael Martinez, and I'm sitting here with my brother Alan Pisarek, who has come all the way down from the cold tundra of Wisconsin, the Toma area of Wisconsin, which has got to be down in the 30s or 40s right about now.
It will be after. It will be tonight. I don't know. I think so.
It's got to be pretty nice sitting here. By contrast, so all your buddies back there. Hi, how you doing? He's nice and warm. Shout out to our buddy Jacob, right?
Yes.
Jacob for the hat, and I should have wore it out here. That would have been a good hat actually to wear, but thank you for that. And you guys are awesome. We're so thankful for all those that have hung out with us. This has been quite a year. Now, since 2018, when in the middle of the fall feast, we got the word from Elohim that confirmed the Zadok calendar. We switched. Our world shifted right after that. We had Operation Prayer Wall right away. We ended up down here in Arizona literally within 6 months of that shift, and been in a bit of an accelerant ever since. I just started thinking about that a while ago, but it's been 4 years. But there's been something about this year that sort of brought, I think, some of these issues more to a head. And more people started talking about the calendar and about those issues a little bit more. It used to be we deferred. We would just go, hey, when's Passover? And somebody would go ask the Jews. Isn't that what we used to do? We never thought about it because, we just assumed, like everybody else, well, they got that all figured out. It was in 2015 that I really got suspicious. When we were there for the fall feast of 2015, and they didn't keep their own procedure.
Don't they combine a few here and there?
Well, I was a neophyte to how it was supposed to work, right? Again, what did we all do? We would all, who didn't do this? We all did it. We were all like, somebody tell me, and we would type it into Google, and Google would tell us.
Yeah, and Google.
And Google, of course, never lies.
But it's always going to tell you what Judaism has been typing into it.
Judaism has been typing into it, right? Yeah. Which is a different religion like Catholicism. And we didn't realize that until we started doing a little bit of our own homework.
Well, you first hear about the Hebrew roots of stuff. I don't want to go that direction, but the word itself comes to mind. So instantly you're looking through there and you see the Hebrew calendar. And you assume, well, that must be it.
That's what we did.
Yeah, it's what almost, I don't know anybody that didn't really.
Right.
And the mistake is that the Hebrew calendar has been altered, since way back when, just after Solomon.
Let me guess. It's the same guys.
Yep.
Who modified his name over 6,000 times. Am I over the target? Is it the same guys?
Yep.
Are we talking the same guys? Come on, you knucklehead.
And then very carefully removed texts or said, oh, don't read that text.
Right.
The very text that would show that they're in error.
Isn't that kind of like Daniel 9? Isn't that a forbidden passage? I understand that that's got a seal on it that certain people cannot read that. This is how this works. They put like invisibility spells on books. And they go, thou shalt not read this book. And those under the spell, they follow it.
Seal up the words till the end.
Hey.
I know them, but I'm not going to tell you.
Hey, but they were sealed, weren't they? They were sealed. They were sealed how? How did we find out they were sealed? Grab this, will you? They were sealed.
They were hidden. And
where were they hidden?
Qumran.
That's right. They were sealed in canisters, exactly fulfilling the prophecy that they would be sealed to the time of the end. The words of the prophecy, and the year that it came out. Isn't that one of the things that, I don't know about you, but that really struck me. The year that first discovery was made.
It's almost like a game, like a chess move. Okay, we're going to install this
Jewish state.
Yeah,
right?
we're going to install this Jewish state.
Right.
We've already successfully, back in the first century,
right,
covered up and edited a lot of stuff.
Right.
They
changed calendars so many times. Like they already modified. What did they dump 240 years because they were trying to cause someone else to fulfill the messianic prophecies?
You can really tie yourself in a knot trying to figure out all the messed up calendars.
Wow.
And so
same guys.
They move in 47, 48, and
right.
48 declare that this is Israel returned.
Right.
And the Creator says, well, wait a minute, here, take a look at this. I'm just going to put this over here. And
it's just incredible.
And somebody throws a rock into a cave, and boom, all of a sudden, and then
just coincidentally,
yeah,
just coincidentally, the Dead Sea Scrolls are found. And so, what do we find when we find these? It wasn't just the calendar isn't the only thing.
No, we found that there was that this disagreement that we're having now was the same one that they were having then.
Ancient fight.
It was literally the disagreement between the southern tribes and northern tribes, but I really don't even want to pick on them as a total. What I'm going to say is it's the ones who wanted to stay on the Babylonian calendar or use the Babylonian calendar were at war with the ones who wanted to keep the covenant calendar, because what good is the covenant calendar if you don't keep it?
Well, not only that, but what you find is that this is something that we discovered this year during our series on uncovering demonic doorways, and I highly recommend anybody that hasn't taken the time to sit through that series. Right on the front page of our website, and there's a playlist on YouTube that you can certainly search out. Highly recommend it. And in part 3, we talked about where some of these traditions came from, because what we started doing, instead of like having these Bible debates, right, and that's what everybody wanted to do, and like, wait a minute, but where did this come from? Because if we can discover where this originated, that will help us a lot to put it into a context. And that began a journey that ended and for me it ended in 2018, and I presented my findings in the House, and all of us had to review that and realize, wow, well, we were lied to. And it was just like discovering the Christmas tree. It was the exact same thing, wasn't it? Didn't it feel the same way?
Yep.
Like, thanks a lot. You just tricked us into another trick to bring Babylonian and Sumerian customs and worship practices and intertwine them and mix them. So isn't that exactly what harlotry is? Isn't that what he means when he talks about adultery and fornication and he's angry? Isn't that exactly what he's talking about, polluting the right way? Now, another thing I think we kind of really hit was just how Enoch had this. And the only way that their main tamper point seems to be the word Hodesh, but because it's clear that there was a cult which they figured out long ago that this opened demonic doorways. If you obey the word of Elohim, you get the cover of Elohim. Does that make sense? But if you obey the word of the devil, you come under the sway of the wicked one, right? So whichever one's word you believe and adhere to, they are your Lord or your overseer, your master, right? You're under that cover. So if you stop and you don't obey the word of Elohim and you say, no, I'm going to listen to the word of the watchers, because this gives me magic power instead of divine blessing. So it's a competition between, because it's real power. The magic works. I mean, we have a whole monetary system based on monetary Babylonian money magic. So we can't deny that it works. We can't do it. We've watched the witchcraft. My goodness, we've watched people under witchcraft for several years now, shaking our heads going, what are they doing? But this year seems, how did it seem to you different than previous years?
One thing that I'm noticing is more brothers and sisters out there, even if they haven't figured out the times exactly, they're at least acknowledging that, hey, this is a miss, and everybody's getting closer and closer. I notice everybody every year gets a little closer, and the debating or arguing about it that I used to experience 2-3 years ago has calmed way down. But the only what do you want to call it, resistance that I get to it is, you, in order to have that resistance, you have to clearly ignore what the texts say.
Right. Well, and you have to also eliminate
Wow, I could see the pilot in that one.
Wow, that one had, not only, and this is some of the part that the Dead Sea Scrolls recovered for us, is it confirmed the Ethiopian Bible's inclusion of Enoch and Jubilees, didn't it?
Yeah. Enoch had the mechanics. He was literally shown the mechanics of this, and he described it perfectly. And it's just amazing, that we will still, like I said, I was looking through the Farmer's Almanac the other day, and I know that they keep a schedule based on agriculture. So I thought I was going to open it up and I was going to see a lot of wisdom in there, like I see in the Dead Sea Scrolls, but I didn't. Okay, they know when spring starts, but the rest of it they throw right out the window and start showing, constellations and zodiac. Well, for them it's zodiac.
Sun, moon, and stars.
Yeah.
And this takes us back to what Messiah said about the sun being darkened, the moon not giving her light, and the stars falling from the heavens. And ever since he's revealed the calendar issue to us, it has continued to make me look at that verse.
Yeah.
Because now I look at it in the context as a sun calendar, moon. I never realized how many calendars were based on lunar. There were lunar calendars, like the Chinese calendar is a lunar calendar, the Babylonian calendar is a lunar calendar, the Greek calendar was lunar. Of course, the Muslim calendar's lunar calendar. And of course, the Judaism calendar is a lunar solar calendar, which was adopted 200 years before the coming of Messiah.
Yeah.
And
that's right around the time that the Zadok priesthood, the legitimate line of Aaron, would have been run out of the temple.
Let's talk about that for a minute, because that's a point of deep emotion for me. And I know not everybody can identify. I don't know why, but they kind of keep themselves at distance. But family's family. Doesn't matter how many generations pass, And I think about how many people died because they wouldn't concede a point that we still see the arguments of today, and the same vitriol, the same venom that seems to come out when this matter comes up. And it's like you stepped into an ancient fight. And what they did to the priests and anybody really who stayed with them, you can't call it anything other than mass murder, can you? I mean, what else do you call that? Genocide, or some type of. They just tried to wipe them out. Just they can't convince you to do what they want you to do. We're just going to kill you.
Right, and to do that, they needed to have the place that everyone viewed as the authority. So once they had
sort of the political upper hand.
Yeah, once they had moved into the temple and
Right.
and shown themselves as people who operate the temple,
Right.
and then it made it easier to say, hey, those folks out in the desert, don't listen to them. They don't know what they're talking. Well,
they did that actually right at the temple. I mean, they started that process even before they went out to the desert, because they were the debate was in Jerusalem.
Did you know? I don't know if you knew this. Did you know that James, brother of Messiah, would come to the temple, and of course he kept this calendar. He would come to the temple on the real days, and they would just let him go in and do his thing, because they just all assumed he was on the wrong day. He was harming no one. But he got in a little trouble when a lot of people started saying, hey, he's right. He's doing these things at the right time. So
That has been, I think, if you really look at it, it became, and this I think is what came out in that discussion about opening demonic doorways, is this has been a global psyop for a long time. This is a master key, one of their, and at first it didn't occur to me at first, because I'm thinking, well, how does this work? How's this, all right, so they're wrong about something, big deal. No, it is a big deal, and here's why. First of all, you can't all be right, so there's a right path, and then the rest are wrong, right? So that's narrow. Hello. But also, the other factor that you have to take into consideration is that even if you have figured out the right time, you have to be a person that is submitted to Elohim. And so, we were trying to figure out how this works. And what we know from the scripture, from the principles, you mentioned James, well, he's the one that gives us a key. He says where there's envy and strife, there is confusion in every evil work. All right, so now let's think about that for a minute. Where's the strife? The strife is with you and heaven, with you and Elohim. You didn't even know it, because he said do it this way, and you're doing it a different way. Whatever that other way is, it could be the sun, moon, stars, it could be anything, right? So once he establishes the right way, he by default also established all the wrong ways. Anything that isn't his way is wrong.
That's the wrong way.
Exactly. So when he did that, he established a place of error. By establishing righteousness, he also established anything that isn't this is now in the place of error. And this turned into, as it turns out, is a trap. And this is where all the works go. So now you have every evil work, because you have strife with Elohim. You didn't even discern it. Now you come out of that strife, and you're like, well, I don't want to argue. I want to do it the way you've established. How did the priest do it? Let's not try and figure it out. How did they figure it out? I don't want to figure it out. I'm done with that. First of all, they're operating with purer text. Okay, closer to the root. So less contamination that occurred to the scripture by that point, right? We know for a historical fact that the Roman Catholics employed correctories to correct doctrine and change scripture, change points, and so forth. We now spent, who knows, between us and all of us as a group, how much time pulling apart their lies, only to go, you guys are nothing but frauds. We've got to go down to root text, and even then we've got to go search for the right text. So in comes the Dead Sea Scrolls to give us back a proof text that we can use to correct the errors and find the lies. That's a game changer.
Yep, and by kind of shadowing those books or shunning those books, Enoch and Jubilees especially, I can't help but feel their thoughts were, well, here's the design, here's the mechanics of it,
Right.
here's the text and how he said to use it, in Jubilees. And without those two, I can tell you, I feel that it's hard to describe. There's enough in the text we have to verify it, I feel. But it's that there has to be that one thing that goes, hey, wait a minute, there's a different idea I need to look for.
Well, first of all, you're exactly right. If you rightly divide the word of truth, you don't start changing the meaning of a word or a term to fit a preordained agenda. Again, we were battling our predominant adversary were moon worshippers. So when you know that as a context, they were lunatics, okay? And so you start looking at, well, where did they get this? Like, for example, that first sliver thing that we went to Israel and we're told we're supposed to look for the first sliver of the new moon, and that's how you determine the first day of the first month of the seventh month, and blah blah blah, right? And so we're just being obedient to what we were told because we didn't know enough to know we should challenge that like we challenged other things, right? So we're looking at it, but then when we look into it, we're going, wait a minute, where'd they get this method? Where'd this come from? And if I find it pre-flood being used by the Sumerians, right, and I'm seeing it being used by other people groups, then you can't tell me that that's the method that was sent by and delivered by Elohim through Enoch, because there's no reason to send Enoch with the right answer if they were already doing it right.
Right.
And that was already being done pre-flood. That very method, the very same method, not a different method, that method. First, 8, 15, right? Those days being set apart through lunar observation. Everything based on lunar observation. That was the method being used pre-flood. That was the method being corrected by Enoch. So you don't correct something that's correct. I mean, that's just common sense. That's without even getting into a whole lot of proof texting, which we all did ad nauseum. And then realize, wait a minute, that's the wrong way to go about it. They want you to have that debate because it goes around. They got traps set for you there. No. Go take a look at the root of this tree. A corrupt tree cannot bring forth good fruit. A corrupt tree cannot bring forth good fruit. If the fruit of that tree is Sumerian and Babylonian, please try and stop explaining it any further right there. Just please stop. Because you're nothing but a brood of vipers, right?
It's
now,
hard.
You noticed something about the menorah.
Right. I was going to say, it's easy to put an idea in your head and then have it match when they're actually two different things. Like they say new moon. All right, there is a such thing as a new moon. Okay, that doesn't have anything to do with where it's supposed to say new month. It doesn't have anything to do with that. The observation of the only thing that it tells us to observe is the sun to count days, and it tells us this week that we have to watch for the
guarding of the month of Abib.
Yeah, we have a week of 7. We have a week with 7 days in it. Somewhere in that 7 days is going to occur the equinox, and from that day we know where to set our calendar to go 364. Another thing I want to mention is it's numeric. It's never more than 3 days. Well, before I get into that, it's numeric. So you've got 1 to 364.
Right.
They don't shift.
They don't shift.
They don't change your
and that's a point that's made not only in the Book of Jubilees but Book of Enoch as well. In fact, here's the part that got me, guys. This is when I knew Elohim was confirming something that could not come out any other way. He gives an exact numeric count of days for 3, 5, and 8 years, I believe it is, which cannot be accomplished using the Babylonian Sumerian method when they add months at a time. So their number counts never match. We've done the math repeatedly. You're welcome to do it. Let us know what you find out. Write it in the comments. But I'm telling you, what we found is never do they match what Enoch put. But the Zadok calendar matches exactly. So when we're reading this in the Dead Sea Scrolls, not figuring it out, reading it and going, oh, I don't know about you. How'd you feel when you read that? Did you feel like you were reading like the end of the book where the test answers were?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wait. You mean?
Oh, so that's how
I
that
might
works?
have this now? Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Right. Or I didn't know that was the way that worked.
Sure.
Okay. Now it was corrective.
Mm-hmm.
It was there instructing that you, matter of factly, about how the temple priests did it until they were thrown out by the imposters. 200 years before Messiah came, 160 years or whatever it was.
Yeah, who may have meant, as well as they, their motives may have been...
Brood of vipers! Brood of vipers!
Okay, I'm not going to give them any slack then.
Brood of vipers!
They flat came in and decided that they didn't want
Satanists!
They didn't want to...
Devil worshippers!
They didn't want to keep the days.
Well, no, they needed to put demons into people.
Right.
This Messiah's making fun of them, saying, by whom do your sons cast them out?
Mm-hmm.
Your sons don't cast out demons, do they? No, they don't. They put more in than they cast out. And the best they can do is sweep and garnish it, and it ends up 7 times worse, which is where a lot of people were by the time the disciples were going through.
Is that number 7?
He was removing them left and right.
Oh, don't hit that one.
I'm going to kill that fly. If it flies, it dies.
Yeah, so I noticed one day it just hit me. I don't know why. I was thinking to myself, all right, well, there's 7 days in a week. There's 7 candles on a menorah.
Right.
That center candle is the 4th. And we know that when spring occurs, it tells us, right?
This is really cool. Get your whiteboard.
It tells us right in Jubilees that, verse 9 in chapter 2, verse 9 and 10, that the sun establishes the count.
Right.
And then as it rises,
right.
So every sunrise, that's you're clicking them
right.
off, and it gives you 364 of those. But
without the moon, we can't lock the beginning of the year. So the moon establishes the seasons. It brings in the moon is a faithful witness every year. We can't discount that. It's just not used monthly.
Right.
When it's used monthly, now you've gone into the tenets of moon worship. So you're going to find people lighting candles on the first day of the first sliver. That's witchcraft. That's in paganism. That isn't even hard to find. You'll find witches doing that. Okay, you'll find warlocks lighting candles and incense on the first sliver, making wishes to, what was the name of that goddess or some, I don't even want to name, I don't know, Cockday or something like that. And that's who they worshipped. So that was the practice. The practice was burn incense, light a candle on the first sliver of the new moon, and make your wishes. Right? How's that any different than saying prayers, right? So it's all the same thing. And so it's trick worship. And that's what we discovered. So I'm just warning you guys, that's what we're figuring out, is that our adversary, the devil, walketh about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. And he's got a lot of apologists out there who don't look like Pharisees, but they are. And you just need to be careful with that. So what are we doing here?
What I'm doing is...
They can't see that.
I'll turn it around.
Okay.
I don't know if they can see this.
I can turn the camera so it faces you.
I'll put a little bit bigger numbers on there.
Okay. He's fitting to teach. What are we going
First day of the week, second day of the week, third day of the week, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th.
Everybody can see that. Let me tilt it down a little better. Okay.
3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th.
Okay.
All right, so we've got 2 linear weeks there.
All right.
So I noticed that in this whole conversation of I don't know what day to start when when the equinox comes around. I don't know which day to start. Is that okay? Can you see that?
Yeah, no, I can see. I think it can be seen. Yeah.
Okay.
I think you're good. Yeah.
Okay. What I noticed was, all right, it says that, the sun is entering the fourth portal.
Mm-hmm.
We know that clearly that the Zadok priesthood started on the fourth day of the week. We call that Wednesday by name, but it's the fourth day. So there are a lot of fours.
Mm-hmm.
The fourth day of creation is when the sun, moon,
and stars were created. That's right.
Very key to that is they were placed equal distance. Equal. Today we call that the equinox. Equal day and night. So say the equinox. Well, we'll start with a Wednesday. We'll just say the equinox occurs on a Wednesday. I'll just put a little sun here. Fiery, weird sun. So it starts on a Wednesday. We're at 0.
You landed you're not making any adjustment.
Right. So the next year, the equinox does move, and it does follow the days of the week for 3 years continuous, and then the fourth year it skips that day, and then it just skips completely over that day. Now that's something we can't do.
Nope.
We can't make that happen.
But Enoch wrote that out.
Right. So say it happened on
the fifth day.
On the fifth day. Well, you would know to start one day back.
Right. Because you stay within.
Yep.
So you stay within the menorah. Whatever day the equinox hits, you stay within the menorah. If it hits, hit on the first day, whoops, you're outside. So guess what you got to do?
Right.
You've got to go here.
Yep. Well, see, now you're inside. If it occurred on this one, you're in, because this is one of that 7-day week. So, yep, you're right. You'd go forward.
Yep, because it sometimes hits this day.
Yep.
And that's an intercalation day.
Yep.
So we know we're going forward a week. So this will be when the beginning of the year would be.
And so when you hit the 7th, this is
and this we learned. We didn't come up with this. We learned this from the Dead Sea Scrolls. This is how they taught us how to determine where to intercalate. Go ahead.
And you'll notice that it self-corrects itself that way. When you look at this, say it landed on the Sabbath or 7th day, you would start that year. Let's say there's no jump right here. This isn't in the middle of the
3, 5, or 8.
Yeah. So you go over here or start here. So if it happens here, you'd be moving back 3 days.
Correct.
The very next round, pow!
It goes the other way.
It goes the other way.
Yep.
It always resets itself.
Always.
And
so it stays within the 7 days, which is the only calendar that also preserves with precision and perfection the priestly cycle. Because once you add a month, you have thrown off, because it's not exactly 4 weeks, you've now thrown off the weekly cycle of the priests, and that is a violation. So this is why these are all the little things we knew confirmed it. It was so precise and so perfect in the way that it laid out, and this was all just in 1 week a year you needed to figure out. How come? What happens once you figure this out?
Well, you've got your start date, and you've got 1 through 364. All of your feasts are perfectly in line. No Sabbaths ever cross over.
Right.
You don't have any addition weeks. You don't have any weeks of sitting around holding your breath waiting for an observation, because the beauty,
which again was a Babylonian custom and a Sumerian custom. So just to be clear.
Yeah, and another cool thing about this is you get to enjoy more of those. What do I call them? Events on this, because you're more true to where your schedule's supposed to be. So you're never more than 3 days off from whatever.
That's brilliant. I'm so intrigued how you figured that out using just the menorah, which is really cool because it ties something that we know is part of the tabernacle that would have made so much sense to our ancient forefathers in terms of keeping it simple. And it is simple once you lock in the beginning of the year. Wow.
Yep. The need for.
Are you done with this section?
Yes.
Okay.
The need for they probably did it. You know, they had sundials and other.
Well, they had what's those called? The Gilgal.
Okay.
The Gilgals.
Yep. That the one that would show the equinox?
Yes.
In the whole, yeah.
So when they would say the prophet would meet you at Gilgal, here we're thinking, you know, I just thought it was the name of a place. No, it's a thing. That's a time thing on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
That's a sundial, basically.
Yep.
And I mean, look on your screen. I'm sure you're seeing one right now. So you know that is used to determine the equinox, and therefore once you set that, you set the year.
Sure, you determine, okay, it's happening today.
Right.
You know, well, today is, and therefore you know which direction with the menorah.
Right.
You know which direction to go.
This is all they did.
Mm-hmm.
This was a big. This is like a major part of their job.
Yep. Because you know it's divisible by 7.
So when they came in to suggest, I want you to think about this, guys. They've been doing it this way for, safe to say,
2,600 years,
something like that. A couple millennia, right? And in comes some dude from Greece, Antiochus, and they're going to change it.
Oh yeah. Well, I was just saying Judaism's been keeping the lunar calendar.
No, I'm talking about at the point that they were.
Oh my goodness.
They had been doing it. Well, I mean, in Israel though.
Oh, sure.
So prior to Antiochus and that group, they've been doing it this way for how long up to that point?
Oh, you got me there.
Well,
Long
at least upward to well, we're talking like 1,400 years or something, aren't we?
Yeah.
Okay, so some ridiculously long amount of time. Let's just leave it at that. And in comes a new method. This is the method they use. It's simple. You lock in the year, it's over. And in comes this, no, we're going to, and they knew it. So that's why they got rid of the Book of Jubilees. Because the Jubilees busts it straight out. I mean, it doesn't even leave any room in chapter 6.
No.
For debate.
And it kind of gives them, what do you want to call it, a little more, it gives the people a little more need for the person to tell them where they're at as far as time goes. So it's making them more reliant on the Pharisees to tell them what time it is. Oh yes, I saw the moon, or it lines up with this. Or
well, that was the other thing that got to me, and I was so done once I learned that this was the method not only introduced but championed by the Pharisees. I'm all done. I'm all done. Like that. If there was ever a nail in the coffin, mic drop moment, like I don't need any. I need to hear no more.
Mm-hmm.
Rent my clothing. I ain't following these guys. They're so confused I wouldn't follow them to the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, for anybody that still wants to debate that, I just feel like it's like they're just not including a bunch of information that has now come to light. I mean, what's the point of sealing it up so it can come to light if when it comes to light you ignore it and go back to the tradition? That's scary. But we've all seen it. We've told relatives about the tree in the bed in the living room, and they still did it the next year. They even knowing that, even after we told them the truth, they still went and did it the next year. What is that? Yeah, go ahead and explain that one, Grandpa.
I've told a few people that I've got. Well, Jacob saw this, and Jacob's real smart guy, real mathematical, and he worked this thing forwards and backwards, and he come over with a bunch of sheets, and a whole bunch of numbers.
Don't you just love guys like that?
I just looked at him and I went, well, I can't do any of that. He goes, it doesn't matter. It still ends up to be that.
Yeah. And it's funny how we've had various people come at it from different angles. But again, what it seems to be the key is demeanor. If I could say it, it's the calendar for the humble.
Yeah.
Because what I see being done by others and the demeanor that seems to sort of matriculate from these other things is very aggressive. Well, how would you describe it? You've had to tangle with quite a bit of it.
Yeah. Even some folks that were trying this or just hearing about this years ago when this first, kind of broke. it's obvious what you're getting into when the guy flat says that's not it. You know what kind of argument or debate you're about to have. But I've even gotten guys that were trying to use this, but they would set always forward, always forward, always forward. And
the equinox. They had to always have the new year after the equinox.
Yeah.
Well, so that's one group did that actually. I think it was in 2019, and they went ahead and intercalated incorrectly. You can't apply a fix that produces the very error that you're attempting to correct. So in the intercalation, if you don't do it right, your new year will be further than 4 days because you did it wrong. You cannot be beyond the menorah.
Right. Everything I keep running into says you don't do anything except for do what he said.
Just do what he said.
Do what he said, and it's written right there.
But you got to understand it, and that's where we have to humble ourselves. At least that's my opinion. And you guys can do what you want.
I'm working on it.
But we did with regard to this issue because we didn't figure it out. The Zadok did, whom are commended. The priest, the Aaron's line, had it, and this is what they did. They defended it with their very lives, and then when they could defend it no more, they put it in jars and sent it to us like a message in a bottle. Do you understand how precious that is to us? Like a message in a bottle, and then we found it and went, our family sent us this just to say, you're going to need this. You're going to be in war. And I have a feeling that if you're wrong about this issue, and it is a big deal, which I believe it is.
Oh, it's a very big deal.
It's going to change your results in the battle.
It's like shifting into overdrive once you understand it. Okay, I know where I'm at here. Right.
That's right.
The road's straightening out. I got these dates coming up. It sheds light on, closes a lot of debates on, it causes you to see a lot of things in the text you've read a million times
that you never would have seen before because you didn't know what sun, moon, and stars were referring to.
Right.
And all the omens. How about that? Boy, have we ever gotten a lesson in omens and oracles and divination, basically. Varying ways to try to divine his will rather than seeking first his kingdom and his righteousness. And again, he doesn't send in an emissary unless something must be changed. So why send in Enoch unless what they were doing was super jacked up? So jacked up that when Enoch departs, they go back to it. And what happens? You end up with Noah.
And the Maccabee Revolution, noble, again, wanting to cleanse the temple and everything from what happened. But when they installed the non-appointed priests, okay, first off, they're not appointed. They
broke it.
They broke it right there.
And
And then they decided to go ahead and use the Babylonian calendar anyway.
Yep.
So
because the pressure was enormous, and we've all been there. We see it. You can see political pressure. It might not happen right then, but it bends. Something that you couldn't get away with in the 70s, you might get away with in the 80s. If not, the 90s. If not, the 2000s. If not, 2010s. And haven't we all seen that creep where there was this major resistance back here, but that resistance was one generation. And that generation starts getting old or get killed or whatever, and the next generation's going, what's the big deal? We'll hang with the Greeks. Right?
When in Rome.
When in Rome, hey, right? No big deal, we'll do the Babylonian. And the way of truth is forgotten. And it's buried in a jar, sealed, until it's found again. This is what makes this exciting to me. Man, it's warm out here today.
It is.
I'm enjoying that.
Not like Wisconsin. It's probably pretty warm there today, but they're getting short on those now. It was already in the 30s at night before we came down.
Yeah. Well, it's getting cooler now at night. But we're getting down into the 50s now. Because I know last night I opened the door and went, oh, hello. Here's some of that. What do they call it? Desert cold. air that comes in.
One thing I'll tell you that I'm gonna miss is the quiet. I mean, obviously you hear noise, you hear bugs, stuff like that. But when I got down here, it was so quiet, my ears rang for 2 days. All I could hear was my own ears ringing because of all the noise I'm used to.
We're so not used to quiet.
It's amazing that somebody 400 or 500 yards away can be literally whispering or step on a rock or something crunchy, and you can hear it just like they were standing next to you.
How about that rain?
Oh yeah.
You were here for the biggest dump in one day.
Yep.
Because we hadn't had, I don't think we had several days in a row that were heavy. So maybe over 4 days got to a couple inches. But to get an inch and a half in like basically 24 hours, that was no joke. And it's sick. It soaks it right in. Get down in my aquifer. Get in my tanks. Get down in my tank. How's that water taste?
Good.
Pretty good, huh?
Yeah. Very good. We're gonna. In fact, I got some bottles with me, and fill a couple up for the drive home.
You're a good man. Take some of my buddy Jacob.
Yeah, I will. I'll make
That's
sure.
That's a good deal. Water's a big deal. Water's going to become a big issue here going forward. What do you see coming up?
Well, I see the tit for tat, kind of like I was.
Man, no kidding, huh? Petty.
Yeah, I see a lot of quick maneuvers that the government's political stuff, whatever you want. I don't really want to get too much into that. They're going to do a lot of quick maneuvers because a lot of people have kind of come to the understanding these folks aren't working for our best interest at all. And no matter what they're doing, this theater.
Doesn't it seem like they're just trying to like rob everything as fast as they can and kind of get away with the loot? Like they're like doing their last runs on every area.
It would, and I bet some
kind of looks like that to me.
And I bet some are. But then when you think, well, they print the money, well, then what?
Well, yeah and no. I mean, they don't all print it.
Right.
I mean, there's a certain group that does, but I'm talking about in general the, ultra wealthy, the factory owner class, the food processor class, that group. You know which group I'm talking, but not us because we don't know anything.
They're out
dirt. We have dirt.
They're out to do anything that would deplete our options or would hinder our results.
Yeah, it's kind of like an army that knows they've lost, so they want to blow up their equipment before they leave the field. Doesn't that feel that kind of? Is that about how you feel? Yeah.
Scorched earth.
Yeah.
We're gonna burn.
Yeah, scorched earth. It's like they're gonna burn on their way out. Hey, beautiful boy, how you doing, handsome guy? Yeah, it feels like that. It feels like a bit like, I think you're right, a bit of a scorched earth feeling I get in the Ruach as well. Like, well, stand by. You got some sore losers. And what happens when people are sore losers? What have we learned? All of us have learned this one. My goodness, they're bad when they're sore losers. They do all kinds of harm on the way out.
Yeah. And I've kind of taken the position, I'm sure many have, don't let the reset and you're going to eat bugs and you're going to...
Oh, nonsense.
Sometimes they're telling you the truth. You're going to own nothing and be happy. The less I own, the happier I get, actually.
There is some truth to that.
Yeah.
There is actually some truth to that, isn't there? The more we do together, that makes me happy. And thanks for lending us Bob.
Oh, sure.
Bob has been awesome. Bob's the Bobcat.
Still running.
Still chugging. Still moving heavy things and moving them around. You know what we were going to do? You see these rocks over there? You guys can't see those, but I'll flip this camera around so you can see it. And maybe not. Oh, wait. Can I do it here? No. Not working. Sorry. Well, anyway, I'll take a picture of the rocks. We're going to take 12 of those and make an altar with it. What are your thoughts? See how big they are?
Mm-hmm.
That's why I thought of that. I thought that would be. They're right.
Yeah, and they're not cut.
They're uncut, no machine on them, fresh out of the ground, 12 stones. The only thing you could do is, I think, alabaster them.
Mm-hmm.
You could put the names of the tribes of Israel on them in Hebrew. What do you think?
I think that would be awesome.
Do we put a grate and use it for an altar to actually light fires underneath, or no? Just symbolically.
Symbolically?
Just leave it symbolic.
Me personally, I would be afraid of taking that step without.
Man, no kidding, me too.
Approval,
but at the same time, I think the symbolism
right
is beautiful.
Sure.
To see what it, because haven't you ever wondered what one of those looked like?
Yeah.
Like, what does it look like when they said they took 12 stones and they built an altar? And I just want it as a memorial.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I want it as a memorial. Like, I want it to be as true to the way they would have done it.
There's a channel called Discover Media or Discovery Media.
Oh yeah.
They've got a lot of really good drone footage and on-the-ground footage of the.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Of the original Sinai and the desert below, so that you can see where they built the calf. You can see the rocks, the carvings. You can actually see the altar that Moses would have built with the 12. And he also had the 12 pillars.
Yeah.
That's all still there. It's not.
So was that the same place that Ron Wyatt went to?
Yes.
Interesting. Because I remember seeing those pictures, but that was a very interesting looking altar. It didn't look. Well, I'll have to look again at that.
Yeah, Discovery Media. Now, we didn't have. Ron Wyatt. He, of course, found the spot. He experienced a lot of resistance while he was there. I think he was actually put in prison there too. Or detained.
Man, that guy had so much persecution to show us what he did.
Yeah.
I have so much respect for guys like that, such trailblazers, just took it on the chin and opened the door, because were it not for him, I would not have gone in 99 to Gomorrah. Mm-hmm. It was because of him. He inspired me. And I didn't want to repeat something that I didn't know was a fact. So I got on a plane and went to verify it and ended up coming back with that jar of brimstone. So that turned out to be faithful, to do that. Mm-hmm. But hey, I was going to mention something else to you. Have you ever been to the Grand Canyon? Mm-hmm. No? So neither have Mindy and I. And, they're talking about, there's upwards of 50 different, ancient ruins in there. And I was like, man, that would be quite an adventure.
Mm-hmm. I heard there was a Sphinx in there. Actually,
yeah.
I saw a photo, but you never can tell from a photo.
What is up with that?
Some guys went in and they were
Egyptian artifacts.
Yeah.
I want to look into that.
Well, if Israelites, it could go either way.
It could go anywhere.
It could be that Egyptians were here too. It
that
could
would be exciting. Should we go check on that, guys? I think we should.
Because when the Israelites left Egypt, they took some of the spoils with them. They would have had these things with them. And there's
who knows what they took with.
Yeah, very close to that area is a carving on a rock of some guys carrying the ark.
Wow.
Not saying.
I heard about that on Ancient America or something like that, or America Unearthed or one of those shows, and they were talking about the Ark of the Covenant being in Arizona.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I'm like, no way.
I think they're just remembering and keeping their history when they draw those. But
I think so too, but I think it's fascinating to find that stuff. And then I found out that when you see those curly cues and these big oversized guys with horns, that was the Nephilim. Mm-hmm. So when we came here, we have a rock.
I saw it.
Did you see that?
Yeah, it's got a
on the screen right now is a picture of that rock.
Oh, it's got a picture to the left of a really tall guy with
a whip.
Yeah.
Something in his hands.
Yeah, it's like almost he's in control of the portal. And he's got horns on his head. And then to the right of him, in between him, above him, is a ram. And to the right of him is a man who you can interpret it different ways. But when I looked at it, it almost looked to me like the man was offering the ram to the guy who can control the portal.
Interesting.
That's what it looked like to me, but I'm no expert on that, so. But you should definitely get a picture of that rock. I saw that rock and I went, wow, that was just laying around. I bet you just like in Las Lunas. Las Lunas, there's evidence there of an Israelite camp, similar, using their same methods of keeping the animals on the inside and camping around the perimeter, to keep animals out. They had the Maseroth laid out on a stone. Unfortunately, that's been busted up, and some of that stuff's had graffiti on it. But also, too, in Paleo Hebrew, is the Ten Commandments on the stone down there. Ironically, right at your gates where you're supposed to put them. As you walk up the path, there it is. So right at your gates, and that does work, by the way. I put them on my gates.
Hey, we put it on our gate, and all of a sudden we ended up in some warfare. So some things couldn't come through our gate anymore. That was really interesting. In fact, I told one person, I said, if he lets you through my gate, that means he's going to deliver you, and that person went somewhere else.
Wow. Yeah, I remember you saying that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we've had quite a year.
Yeah.
A lot of warfare, but you know what was interesting? Last year we had a lot more like wind and rain, like furious storms and stuff. Mm-hmm. And then I prayed for gentle rain. I said, we want the rain, but we want it to be gentle. And even that 1.5 inches wasn't rough. Didn't knock a flag down. Mm-hmm. Didn't break a pole. Right? It just brought the rain. Mm-hmm. So that's been an interesting shift this year. It's as if it's now established. Like you had a fight to begin with, but now the fight's over, and his name is established here, and that's the end of that. Mm-hmm. It was almost like to see. Are you sure you really want to do this kind of thing? You had to be willing to push through it to get to the other side. We called it the vortex. We were like, what is this thing? And then we got it ended.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of how I feel about the calendar stuff. It's like, wow, I really beat my head up against the wall because, my wife needs to keep. She schedules her vacation
right
at the beginning of the year. Well,
right.
They're scheduling, I think it's May or sometime like that. She schedules her vacation for the next year entirely. So she turns it in. She has to have it all planned out. Turns it in all at once.
You know what us grandpas ought to do? We ought to just print it out for the next year or so.
Yeah. I can even work out. It's no mystery where the equinoxes are going to be.
No, nope, we should just print out the next year and just send it out to everybody. So at least they know where we're at. Mm-hmm. They may not be on the same schedule, which is sure. We're not mad at anybody. We're just going to do what we believe is right. But at least then you'll know. Like you'll have a point of reference, so you at least have your eye on it. If you are curious about it, you would at least start to figure it out. At least you'll go, what I said to one person is I said, you may not agree with me. You may not come to the same conclusions, but at least you will say, all right, I see how you got there. Mm-hmm. Okay, all right, I see what you guys read that convinced you to do what you're doing. Mm-hmm. That is the minimum. That's like, to me, a nice actual place to get to. Mm-hmm. Because then you're not asking that person to completely agree. You're just asking them to see, do you see the do you understand how these people arrived at this conclusion? Mm-hmm. And if you can say, yeah, I can see it, you may still argue with it, but at least you'll have respect enough to go, I understand how you received that or how you got that and how you came to it. And I understand how, because we did the same thing, I understand how people ended up doing other things and being on other calendars because all you do is Google it. And like, I don't know, when is Sukkot? Google that, will you? Mm-hmm. And Google tells you. Mm-hmm. What's the chances of that being exactly correct?
Absolutely none. Almost like it's like trying to figure out a date from where you are. Okay, well, what do you have as a measuring stick? You have an errored calendar. What you have to do to figure out where you actually are is go back to where you can recognize where they're counting.
But wasn't that the whole Babylonian thing? Isn't Babylon all about confusion? Isn't that how their magic works? Isn't that the whole thing? I mean, how many of you understand a monetary system?
Well, I think their magic works.
Or the stock market. How many understand that?
Right.
Isn't it all supposed to be confusion? Isn't that the way their world's meant to work? Real confusing.
It's confusing, so we
To where you have to go
ask
pay
them.
an expert.
Yeah, you have
Right.
to ask them for
Or
help.
law.
Yeah.
Law's so confusing. You can't have just simple commandments. No, we gotta have entire libraries full of opinions. How Talmudic of you.
I'm going to make you a deal so good you won't even understand it.
You don't need a lawyer for your lawyer.
You know, but, you know, and
Okay.
yeah.
What were you saying?
We know that from the scrolls, we can see the priestly schedule, and we can see that they started it on Wednesday, or fourth day
Fourth day of the week.
every
right.
time. And I believe, looking at the mechanics of it with using menorah, it's because you've got that center, the fourth.
No, that was brilliant. I didn't even put that together.
You've got equal distance
Yep.
this way and that way. If you say, for instance, the equinox does happen on Wednesday, and out of error you start your day here, or you're 1 day over, or you're just guessing, what have you, then when it comes back around, it's not going to come back around for you the same spot. You're either going to end up with too many days or too short days, or something like that. It just keeps resetting itself.
It corrects if you're even just a decent mathematician. You don't even have to be a great one. If you can just count,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and you just keep a specific count, you can't really blow it.
Mm-hmm.
That it becomes kind of foolproof if you just follow it. But it's not the moon count. It's not the method used by the Greeks, not by the method used by the Babylonians, the Chinese, the Indians. Back then, Tartarians, who knows whatever groups, right? All using this moon stuff because that's what they got taught when they got put under the spell. And Israel's the one nation not under the spell, light to the world.
And it brings up a good point. He said, the beginning of your year will be here. Who's he talking to when he gives them that?
Right,
You know what I mean?
right.
He's telling you, if you want to be in this covenant, these are your dates, this is your time frame. Now, it's not saying that if you're Joe Secular, that you have to keep this calendar at all. Nothing covenant matters to you at that point.
Well, we're not talking to those folks. We're
Right.
talking about people that thought they were.
Right.
So they're walking up and they want to avoid the words, "Depart from me, you worker of iniquity, I never knew you," right? We all dread those words. So we want to search out anything that he would think is iniquity. Not what we would think is iniquity, because we might move the goalposts. We can't trust each other on that.
Right.
But we can trust him because he doesn't move.
Right.
So what was a sin 1,000 years ago is a sin today.
Yeah.
So something that offended him before the flood is going to still offend him today. And that's my point. And if worship of other Elohim offends him, which we know it does, and he sees you do a practice that came from this place, there's a reaction that you get that isn't positive.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we keep, and what we watch is a double down, but we don't see the fruit that we see when they come out of that. And I was talking to Gerald about this because he's been at this a while too, and I said, have you noticed the demeanor difference? And
Yeah.
we got to talking about that and how people seem so different, like in terms of their pace and their calm and their true joy. And that was something that I really was bothered by through many years of ministry, because despite having tons of head knowledge, people would come to meetings and whatever, and they looked like they were tweaking.
Yeah.
Can I just say that? They didn't have peace.
Right.
You know? And isn't that what you're trying to minister to them? Right? We serve the Prince of Peace, and we want to minister the gospel of peace. And so when they have none of it, when they're just fidgety as a cat on a hot tin roof in Arizona, you know something's not right. So this is why the pastoral part of me says, wow, I'm liking this nice, calm result.
And then
the demeanor change. It seems like, I don't know quite what it is. You have to give me more time to analyze it, but there's something that lifts off when you come into right time, or you come into agreement with the Zadok. As whether you agree it's the right time or not, all I know is that's the way they did it. We're doing it their way. So it's like discovering a diet that says, try this diet and you'll lose weight. So we're trying it, and we're telling you you lose weight. It works.
Well,
right?
Well, I don't know.
Okay, that was a bad analogy.
My feast is showing.
Stop it. My feast is showing too.
That's awesome.
Well, this talk has been great. I'm always grateful when we get a chance to talk. Folks, this is what we do. We just sit out here and we talk about things like this. And I pray that you have a place of shalom, that you're finding your brethren and connecting with your brothers and sisters wherever they are, wherever you are. And we will continue to invite you onto our back porch when we can, or our feast day celebrations, or our baptisms, or whatever else we get to doing. And we encourage you to share with your brothers and sisters. Share the things you're doing. Share your breakthroughs. Share your answers to prayer. I know He's doing miracles where you are. I know He's doing great signs and wonders there as well. Write it to us. Share it with us. Let's see it as well, because we want to be encouraged. And that's what we want to do, is encourage all of you. Thank you so much for joining us. Alan, thanks for joining me today.
Absolutely.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
May Yahuwah bless each and every one of you. And remember, Yahushua HaMashiach, He alone is King of Kings.